everybody. It's great to be back here again tomorrow. It's Friday, Parashat Toldot. First, I want to thank all those who participated in the rally, and of course, all those who are standing with Israel. But the rally in Washington, D.C. was fascinating, 300,000 strong, showing the solidarity with Israel. It gives us a lot of strength here, knowing that you're all with us, you have our backs, and we know that we will overcome this evil. Amen. I want to talk about this week's portion, just analyze a very interesting event that takes place. As we all know, Esav is in the field, and he comes back from the field hungry, and he sees Jacob appearing, the red stuff, these lentils, and he says, give me that. And Jacob says, okay, sell me the birthright, and Esav does so. And the Torah right away testifies that he despised the birthright. Because Esav says, what's this going to be for me? I'm going to die one day. What do I need the birthright for? Right? It's extremely symbolic. As we all know, it just shows that people choose a physical enjoyments, the pleasures of the world, instead of the spiritual side. And that seems to be very clearly the struggle. But, question is brought down, what exactly motivated? Why was Esav so quickly motivated for some lentils to sell his birthright? So it's a very interesting, there's a fascinating disagreement of commentary of how to explain that. And the simple understanding of the verse, the Ibn Ezra, as we all know, the great giant Ibn Ezra, who lived in the year, was born in the year 1089 in Toledo in Spain, and he basically disagrees. Well, he came before the Nachmanides, but he gives his simple understanding of why Esav agreed to buy, to sell his birthright. And he says something very simple, is that he was born into a poor home. He didn't see wealth in the home. And because he saw his father was so poor and didn't have much, he was willing, he didn't have much food in the house. He could say someone who's poor, lives in a terrible poverty situation, is willing to do certain things because, you can say, if you take this a step further, you could say basically, the whole behavior patterns of Esav in Isaac's house was a result of the situation of poverty, of being not having to look around the home and to see everything is so scarce. And he brings some proof to that. He tries to show how Jacob himself, when he went down to get his wives, when his mother Rebecca told him to leave, and then Isaac, she tells Isaac that he has to get some wives, and he leaves Israel. So we know that he wasn't sent with any money, and not only that, when he also stole the blessings, or took the blessings from Esau, she had to take garments from Esav. She didn't have other garments of his own to give him. So those are the different, there are a couple of reasons of how he understands how he proves that he lived in a poor home and he didn't have much. And therefore this really caused Esav to behave that way. The minute he had an opportunity of getting something, oh my goodness, he was so poor that he was willing to sell his birthright. So that's, interesting way, and it's a simple understanding of the verses. But of course, right away, it raises tremendous questions. The Torah itself says he did something terrible. Well, obviously, Ibn Ezra is not denying that. But he's trying to explain that the factors that led to that were his poverty that he lived through. Interesting. The Nachmanides really attacks him immediately. Nachmanides does not agree with this explanation at all, and he said all our forefathers were like kings, and all the nations did business with them. They came to them from all over, and the fact that they saw that they come over to him, they say, "We see that God is with you." To Isaac, obviously he's very wealthy. He was blessed, as we know. Abraham left him a lot of money, but Isaac a lot of possessions. But Isaac, claimed that. The Ibn Ezra claimed that Isaac lost that. There are a lot of people in the world that are born into wealth, but later they lose it. So he seems to hold his own, but Nachmanides argues very, very powerfully. He does not agree with that. And he says the reason, but he has to explain then why did Esav was willing for some red stuff. If he came from a wealthy home and all that, what does he need some lentils for? And he says that it was the cruelness of his heart, the cruelty, that really inspired him to act brazenly, to act in defiance of the birthright. So he is very strictly, wants to argue with Ibn Ezra on this point, and that's really the two sides of why Esav sold the birthright. And it's interesting because if we go into the history of who the Ibn Ezra was as we know, a great giant, a poet, a philosopher, a scholar, a scientist. One of the craters of the moon were named after him. And he had to travel, and he was forced to travel throughout the world. I mean, he went from Spain, where he was born, and he went through North Africa, and he went through London and France and all places. He came back eventually. Some say he came to Israel, and whatever it was. But it was known that Ibn Ezra was extremely poor. And he had a joke, and it was very, very funny. He would say about himself, he said that if he was a candle maker, the sun would stop setting. Or if he was making garments for people that had buried the dead, they have the white tachichim, the white garments, people would stop dying, he would say. In other words, everything he would touch, he didn't. Life was very difficult for him financially. He had a very, very difficult challenge in life with his family, personal thing. His wife died when he was young, and his son, he had a lot of problems with his son. Some even say his son actually converted to Islam. It's not really validated, but there was issues there. Whatever it was, he had a difficult life, but his happiness was his Torah, to learn, and so, to write, and the amazing legacy that he left us. But I feel, of course, there's no doubt, Torah can be explained in many different ways, as long as it's not contradicting the principles and the foundations of Torah. But he chose, perhaps, maybe to explain, and to simple understanding here, he connected to it with his heart. Maybe you can say because of his life as being living in poverty so much, and seeing how poverty could drive people to the worst directions. And he understood how Esav could be driven to his evil, because Esav was evil, as we all know. But through his poverty, he wasn't able to overcome that challenge in life. And God gives everyone a challenge for them to overcome. So he's trying to show the comparison that, again, deep down, subconsciously perhaps, I don't know, but maybe he was trying to teach us an important lesson. I'm sure he was, that he himself was such a impoverished person, terrible situation, a difficult life, but he utilized his life in such a beautiful way, and the legacy he left, no wealthy man in the world could reach his fingernail or toenail to what he left us. He's really one of the wealthiest people in the world, what he left. And maybe he was trying to show that lesson, that Esav, who was perhaps inspired through his difficult situation, he was motivated through his difficult situation to sell his birthright for something very, very earthly, food and all that. On one hand, you could say, look at it. You can't. The poor guy, he's an innocent individual. No, but I think he really wanted to stress the difference between someone like him and someone like Esav, the difference of people, how they spend their lives. And that really is a powerful lesson here. And he actually brings down Elijah the prophet for an example. He was a very poor prophet. There are very, very, very brilliant, great scholars in the world, giants of Torah, special individuals that just financially they can't make it in the world, right? There are many of those we know. But the fact is that in reality, they're the most wealthiest people in the world. And look how far they've gone to their connection with the highest places. The prophet Elijah, as I said, and he was supported by the woman from Salfat who gave him some flour and some oil. Remember that? And she said, "I don't have anything," and he made that a blessing within that. And that's really, I think, a very deep reason why he was very, very focused on giving this explanation, because he was teaching a lesson in what it is, how a person should deal and cope with poverty. Right? As we all know, the Talmud itself brings down examples of challenges, one with a tremendous amount of wealth, as opposed to one who barely had anything in the world. And both have no excuse not to be divine servants. They both have to worship God with a full heart and directly. Nachmanides, who challenges him, doesn't accept that. Okay, that's, again, practical understanding of the verses, but I'm reading it, a deep message I see here, of course. Why Ibn Ezra went out of his way to explain it this way? Because he himself grew up in poverty, and he can really understand how people can go two ways when they have a challenge in this world. And I think this lesson, we could take it to what's going on today. There are challenges we're going through that we've never been challenged before in Israel. Difficult challenges, and we have to show our steadfast faith in God, that God is behind us in every challenge, every difficult situation, every dark corner, a light will shine, and we have to overcome any fear, and we have to be strong and steadfast and have faith in God and know that we will overcome this and we will see beautiful days and we will make this life worth living by doing the right things in this world. And that is something that's everlasting and eternal, and not those who try to cleave on to the mundane physical world that withers and disappears, but to cleave to ethics, to our morals, to our Torah, to the light, will be something that will be left a legacy forever for all mankind. And that is what we have to do as the people of Israel. And this little lesson here came right out of the words of the Ibn Ezra. Shabbat Shalom, B'sarot Tavot, Yeshaot, V'nechamot.